Welcome into the Toyota Lounge for the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships, the official vehicle of DNVR. Rudo and Eric coming to you live. We're talking goalies today, or at least somebody's going to be talking goalies today, whether that be Eric or the handful of people he's talked to over the last couple of days. As always, goalies exist. They're a thing that are on the ice, and I definitely know things about for sure, for real. But, you know, beyond that, obviously goaltending. Eric, would you say goaltending is the most important position in hockey?
Well, if it's not the most important one, it's certainly towards the top of the list, right? I use that phrase all the time. Like, I don't think you can win in the NHL with average goaltending. I think you need good goaltending. I think we saw with the Avs a couple years ago, let's say with Kemper, you don't need great goaltending, right? I mean,
sure.
I play with my words here, you know what I mean? So I don't think you need great goaltending for some teams.
Yeah, if you're the best team on paper in the last 20 years, you can get away with just okay goaltending, sure.
Yeah, like go even with the Red Wings. I thought they were an outstanding team, and not a knock on Chris Osgood or, I thought he was just a good goalie. He wasn't Patrick Waugh, for example. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think it's an offense to Chris Osgood. I've met him, nice guy, and I don't like to say nice things about the Red Wings. But Chris Osgood was a good goalie. I don't think he was of the caliber of, some will argue that he should be in the Hall of Fame, and that, I welcome all those arguments. That's fine. But then again, the Avs 2 years ago, Kemper is a good goalie, not a great goalie. You know what I mean? Yep. Hill last year, good goaltending. He caught a good run at the time, at that time. But when you think about it, it's not even on the roster at the start of the season. He's like their third goalie. So then again, I think it's important, and I think go back to the University of Denver. God, I mean, Matt Davis.
Yeah.
Outstanding in that month. He's just phenomenal in those last 4 games. You know what I mean? So I think you need good goaltending, and I think the Avs got that the last 2 playoff series. You can't fault, Georgiev for the losses in the series. But, somewhere, somehow, it is an important position. If you get below average goaltending, it is so hard to win in this league. It is so hard to rack up points every night when your goaltending is average at best. You need more than that. And I think that the Avalanche have been more than fine the last few years. But as we know, obviously they're trying to develop within. And, obviously you saw that at the draft last week there or 2 weeks ago.
So how do you find that good goaltending? And I know I don't mean the blanket. Yeah, you scout them, obviously. But you talk about how streaky those goaltenders are. You mentioned Adin Hill. You go back couple more years, Matt Murray in Pittsburgh was a backup going into that playoffs, and next thing you know, he's winning Stanley Cups. Is this really just a Avs style spray and pray in the draft and hope you hit one? How do you tell which goalies can get to that next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, we all know, you and I, that I'm not saying I'm no different than you. I'm not a goalie expert. Just happened to have my oldest play that position, and that's why I always put myself in those shoes, right? It's not like I'm an expert, but over the years, I've seen coaches be hard on goalies. I've seen coaches, blame goaltending all the time because it's a cop-out, right? It's an easy way to say why. That's why we lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, in reality, it does happen sometimes. You have to look at the facts, and I think with today's analytics, what it does, and I was trying, we'll talk a little bit about Brian Decor and stuff, but I was trying to Dak last week, and he was showing me the app that he actually started, you know what I mean, for analytics for goalie, for him, right? So his own app, and it's funny because it's more like a defense mechanism, you know what I mean, for when you walk in there and then the coach is like, oh God, Rudo was terrible, couldn't control his rebounds, and it's like, well, as a matter of fact, he didn't control his rebound on that one, but look at his numbers on rebounds. He was at 92%, and then you want to be above 80%. So, yeah, as a matter of fact, he was shitty on that one, but he was actually outstanding in his rebound control. So it's not because one play, it doesn't define your game, right? It's like a forward having a turnover, and then the guy still has 3 goals, 2 assists, and, all you're talking about is turnover. You know what I mean? So I think that what it does now is goalies are a little bit more protected that way in a sense. And then obviously they're a little more exposed as well, right? Because with all the numbers, you can also expose them and say, wow, those guys are shitty, the last few weeks. And there's a reason why we're losing. So I think once you're the Avalanche, I think we touched on it last couple of weeks there. You go back to Grubauer, then you move on to Kemper, then you move on to Georgiev, and you used a lot of draft capital to get those guys.
You did.
Which it's like microphone on. Yeah, sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw the volume go down. You can't keep doing that, and there's a reason why the Avalanche went on to Craig Billington, moving on from being an assistant GM, and instead of going towards retirement, you get him as part of the goalie department, where a lot of teams are doing that. This year you saw it with the Stanley Cup champs, Florida Panthers, right? With Roberto Luongo being, I don't remember what his title is, Louis, assistant GM, whatever he is. And then he's also part of the goalie department. And with Francois Laird, that was with the Avalanche back then when Patty was around. But so now what you're doing is you got Biller that kind of, instead of retiring, forms a goalie department. And, you got Frankie that just kind of, by accident, in a sense, retires, right, because of injuries. And now you're adding a guy that was in the fold like 12 months ago, whatever it was, 16 months ago. And then, obviously UC Perkula being the goalie coach now for a while now. So it's kind of a staple. And so what you're doing is you're looking at developing your own goalies, because somewhere, somehow you got to stop, like spending second round picks, first round picks. And what they decided to do this year was to move back in the draft and then do it with Nabokov, right?
I would push back against that a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for Nabokov, all of that.
Yeah.
Nabokov, I say
I don't know how you say
it. They spent a second round pick on him. How is that any different than trading a second round pick for a goalie?
No, you're right. That you're right. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is, when you keep doing it for the same position every year or two, you know what I mean? You're not really, it's a way to look at it. You just can't keep doing it every year, because just all of a sudden you're not going to have any, right? You can't use it.
Of course.
But it's not different. I agree with you. If you look at it, you dissect it, it's like, oh my God, he's a second rounder. What's the difference? You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But now it's like, now I think you feel better because you actually develop him, and, it's in-house, and you're using your resources, whatever the resources are going to be. And we'll talk about some of the resources today that you can use and stuff like that. But it's what you do. It's one thing to draft 3 goalies. It's what you do after to really make them become NHLers. As you saw last year, I forgot his name there. He kind of lost his net and ended up in the the NOL, and then in the Quebec League. And now I think he's back in Russia.
Zagalov.
The goofy hand there guy, and it's like, and I'm not blaming anyone. I'm saying is maybe it's just a bad pick. I don't know. You know what I mean? But the one thing is what they did is they drafted goalie. Now you got to develop them. And then got one that's you got one that's higher than the other ones, meaning Kluche, he's years away. He's going back in USHL. And then Nabokov is 21-year-old. It's a little different than a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And then he's playing in a men's league, in a pro league in Russia. So whatever happens, is he coming over? Who knows? But I think it's what you're going to do with them, how you're going to develop them, and it will prove if you were right by going back in the draft, like you were saying, or not.
Well, and to back up your point, you explained the Avs have done this 3 or 4 times over the last handful of years, and they've done so relatively successfully too. They've had good success with all of the goaltenders, at least in Colorado. At a certain point, other teams, the Avs call them up and say, hey, we want this goaltender. Guess what? If the Avs want him, he's probably pretty good. The price is going up. So it is to protect themselves a little bit too, that they have to figure out how to do this internally. And look, Annunen is probably a good starting place for that for them, as he looks to be the first goalie that they've really graduate since Budai, I guess.
Yeah, probably. If I look back, yeah. Realistically, like, in a real spot, like in the real roster spot. Yeah, probably Boots.
Like Pickard played, but there were also a bunch of injuries, and then the second that the Avs had healthy goalies, he's barely been in the NHL. Yeah, so
Pick was close.
Yeah, Pick is a genuine third stringer in the NHL. Like that's a guy who can play, but is not really a starter or a backup.
But I want to add to that point that you were saying. If you look at Annunen, it's still a question mark, right? We all know that.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again. Like, I like him. I think he's going to be fine. Like, if you're asking me, I need your answer in 3 seconds. I would tell you, yes, I think he'll be fine. I think he can be a starter. Now, a lot of people might say, no, I don't think so, which is fine. Time will tell. We don't know who's right, who's wrong. But I like the way they've developed them. I like the way that it's going. Now, where is it going to go? I don't know. But look at Nashville. Just to compare, you draft Askarov, right? Was it first rounder, right? You know what I mean? And then who knows? Because maybe you're going to lose USC Saros at some point. So when you draft him, you're thinking, oh, that's the goalie of the future. Next thing you know, the 3 years go by, right? Is it 3 years with Askarov now? It's at least 3 years, maybe 4, that he's been drafted. So all of a sudden, UC Saros is still part of the Nashville Predators. He still signs an 8-year deal. So really, Askarov, your goalie of the future, will be used, like you just said 2 seconds ago, as a pawn, as as an element to go get a player. Even though you wasted a first-round pick on him, it doesn't mean that it's wasted. It means that you developed him. He's a good goalie. Again, time will tell on those guys. You don't know. He doesn't have a lot of NHL experience, right? So, but all of a sudden, the Nashville Predators, you would think, are going to use him right now in the deal. And I said it the other day, and I'll tell you again, Lou Lamoriello, I remember back then, drafted 4 freaking goalies. Craig Billington knows all too well. It was Craig Billington. It was Kirk McLean. It was Chris Terreri and Sean Burke. All 4 of them within the first 2 rounds of, I want to say the same year or 2 years apart. And they're all looking at each other and training camp, like, what the hell's going on here? You know what I mean? Next thing you know, they all played because they all became chips in transactions.
Yep. Maybe not with the team that drafts you, but you can still get value somehow. I love this comment in the Toyota chat up a little bit. Any goaltender coming into the Avs has a high bar to meet. Eric, is the Avs fan base, are expectations a little bit too high? Understandably, especially for older fans. Look, this organization showed up, and 2 months later, they had the best goaltender of all time playing for them. Honestly, beyond that, too, you look in more recent times. Varlamov, Vezina finalist. Grubauer had a Vezina finalist year. Are expectations a little too high for goaltenders in Colorado?
I think so, and I think you're right. I think it is from the comment there. It's the Patrick Roy effect. If you go back to Montreal, he gets those 2 cups in Montreal, then he makes that, whatever, hand gesture to the crowd and, gets into it with the coach and famously, becomes a Colorado Avalanche, and then they go on to win two cups. But Montreal never recovered. And you got to remember, it was always who's the next guy, who's going to be filling the shoes. And then there was so many guys, and, poor Jocelyn Thibault, God, I feel bad for him, you know what I mean? Because he was a good goaltender, and then you go there and you almost can't, you're in a no-win situation. It sucks. You know what I mean? And Joss is a good kid. He was able to handle it. And then the list went on to a bunch of goalies. And then, hold on a second. You got Jose Theodore that wins MVP of the league and the Vezina and everything. And people were still saying, like, oh, they've never replaced Patrick Roy. You got a guy that won the freaking Hart. And they were still saying, oh, my God, they never replaced him until Carey Price, probably. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then, which was years and years and years later. So a little bit like that here in Colorado, where Mark Denny was supposed to be the successor. Obviously, they lose him to the expansion draft, and then Abishir was supposed to be the guy. And it's move on from that, and then obviously Craig Anderson and things like that. Kind of when I say things, it's players like that were not Patrick Roy. And then Varley comes in. He has a freaking Vezina caliber season. The same thing. It's like, oh my God, they're still looking for the next Patrick Roy because, like you said, they were spoiled in 96. Well, end of December 95, when Patty came in and just kind of took over. So yeah, I mean, since then, goaltending has always been not a sore subject. It's not like Philly. I mean, God, boy, those guys are. It's been a graveyard there, but Avalanche has been good. Like you said, it's been some good goalies, but it just still feels like you're still looking for Patty Waugh somewhere somehow.
Well, if they grew on trees, I'm sure the Avs would have found him by now. But look, I think it's pretty clear to say goalie, one of the most mentally stressful positions maybe in all of sports, not just in hockey. So if you're a goaltender, maybe you should go check out BetterHelp. Make sure you take care of your mental health. Go get with them if you haven't yet. They're entirely online and super easy to use. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's a great way to get yourself started. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you decide you want to switch therapists at any time, you can do so for no additional charge. So make sure you're getting with BetterHelp. And really, they just want you to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So you don't have to do anything crazy. It's super easy and quick to get in and out. They can usually get you in within a week, so you don't have to wait for a very long time. Their schedules are super flexible and adjustable, so it can work around whatever it is you might have going on in your life. Whether or not you've been to therapy before, BetterHelp, again, a great way to start. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/DNVR today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DNVR today. And once you're taking care of yourself mentally, make sure you're also having a good time with Circa Sportsbook. Of course, you can go get up on the Circa Sportsbook app and get your bets in. Of course, with that sportsbook, they're all about offering you the best lines possible. They're not too worried about all the frills and that type of stuff. They just want to give you the best odds straight up. So the smart gamblers know where to put their money. But beyond just the sportsbook with Circa, we have kind of a big event coming up right now. Thanks to Circa, we're giving away a bunch of trips to Las Vegas if you want to come out and hang out at the DNVR bar. One of those is through our College Football 25 tournament, if you didn't know. The new game that just dropped. I'm not really big into college football games, but we are having a tournament over here at the DNVR bar on the 21st. You're going to want to come out. You're going to want to enjoy yourself, even if you're not a fan of the sport gaming tournament style stuff. 3 of those trips to Vegas, which are 3-night stays at Circa, are getting raffled off at the DNVR bar. So you're going to want to make sure you come out, you win yourself a trip to Vegas, and then instead of playing on the sportsbook, you can go to the actual Circa and gamble there a little bit. So make sure you jump on it and have a great time with us here at DNVR and Circa. Again, the night of the 21st, we're doing a whole big event. Come out, enjoy yourself at the bar, and maybe win yourself some trips to Las Vegas for 3 nights. It's a great time. Of course, when you do gamble with Circa, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Before we jump into our interview, I did want to ask you, Eric, you kind of mentioned the goalies of the modern era. I'm going to throw Varley in there as well. So Varley, Grubauer, Kemper, and Georgiev. Rank them for me. You're muted. It might be Tiff, though.
Yeah. I'm going Varley. I'm going Varley 1 because I was part of that group there, the management group. And boy, oh boy, I was telling you the story, right? We had Operation Port Rush, we had called it. And we're on this thing with Kurt McLean for months, and Varley. I mean, the research was done, and boy, oh boy, like I hate to say like Monday morning quarterback, like we were right, but I do believe we were right. I mean, it ended up being Philip Forsberg when you think about it, right? Yep. Because that's the pick that we traded him for, the first round pick to the Caps. Caps took Forsberg. They made the mistake, one of George McPhee's rare mistakes, for Martin Erat and, to Nashville and Forsberg. It's been a staple there and been awesome. But that was a tough on them. But Varley, you get, 8 years of a solid number 1 goaltender in the NHL. And Varley was awesome. I enjoyed him. I saw him again this year at Ball Arena. It's the big wave when it's such a nice human being. Like I really enjoyed him. He was a good teammate. He was a good goaltender. Had some injury problems at the start, right? His groin problems and all that kind of stuff. But he really worked at it to make sure that it didn't become an issue. It became an issue a couple times, as we know, but he's still playing in the NHL. He's still, they love him on the island. That's even before Patty got there. Mr. Lamoriello loves him, and obviously Patty comes in. So I'm going to go, because I am biased, with the addition of Varley back then. So I'm going to go Varley 1. I've always been a Kemper fan. Always been. We had the same deal going in Calgary. We were giving up the first round pick, and same thing that the Avalanche did. Ended up signing Markstrom, but you got to remember Markstrom wasn't signing with us in Calgary. He was actually signing in Edmonton, and I'm not too sure what happened. And all of a sudden, changed the heart at the last second. But we had the same deal going. I'm not sure we would have gotten him. Maybe the Avs would have gotten it, but it was the same type of deal. First round pick, and I don't remember what the Avs gave up for Darcy. It was a first rounder and
first and Timmins, I believe. Yeah.
Timmins, yeah. So there was something that's, again, same kind of deal. So I'm going to go Varley 1, Kemper 2, Georgie 3, and Grubauer 4. I just never felt Grubauer was.
I think this is rewriting history. Like, statistically, I think Grubauer was the second best goalie in Colorado of those 4.
Yeah.
Now, since Grubauer's been terrible in Seattle, there's no doubt, since he left Colorado, and the way it ended with Grubauer was brutal with that Vegas series, no doubt. Yeah. But if you look at statistically his time here, he really was very, very good on the whole. And it's hard to rank Georgiev, because a lot of where Georgiev ends up depends on how he does this year. But
yeah. But you're right about Grubauer, because I remember writing my reports, and obviously being based out of Denver, you see a lot more Avs games than any other games, because they come through your city, which Colorado is my city. And I remember saying, like, God, I can't stand Grubauer, but I have to give it to him. He was outstanding tonight. You know what I mean? So you got to, again, when you write a report, you got to write what you see. You can't be biased. You can't be. If the guy was good, he was good. And doesn't, but even though your opinion of him is you don't like him, and more often than not, I agree with your comment was, yeah, he was great. You know what I mean? And but then I would write it, yeah, but I still don't like him. You know what I mean? Like, so, whatever. That's my personal opinion. That's why I go, him as 4th. But again, all 4 had some success and have had some success, and hopefully continued success here. Georgiev being the guy that's still there.
All right. Let's deviate from the Avs conversation for a little bit. Eric, you've been out in Boston. You spent the last couple days talking to the guys over at Stop It Goaltending, and we can get into how the goaltending position has evolved, especially on the training side of things. We have about a 10-minute piece for you guys to watch here, so let's get into it.
How you guys doing? Eric here with Brian. Thanks for having us.
I'm Max Lacroix, sophomore goaltender at Boston University.
Hi, Nick Ismani with Joey Decord, and we are in the place where I feel like you literally and figuratively grew up as a person and as a goaltender.
It's obviously a really unique space. When my dad, he's had this idea forever, and he's always wanted to have, he called it the Taj Mahal. That was kind of his, he wanted to build, one place where goalies could come and just do everything. The gym, the rink, the yoga, the vision training, the physical therapy, you name it, he wanted it all in one center.
I mean, you look at those highlights back in the day, and it's definitely not the same athleticism and the same, obviously comes with the equipment too, just goalies look so much different nowadays, and you got your 6'6" Vasilevskis and, just freaks of nature, but yeah, when I was a kid, you had the leather straps and just completely different gear, and nowadays it's like 2 pieces of Velcro, and it's all about being the lightest you possibly can, and yeah.
I walked into this facility yesterday. There's an ice pad. You got shooting nets. You've got the visual training. You've got this awful cardio thing called the cage. You've got yoga. You've got mental coaching. You've got video review. You've got an incredible gym, an incredible on-site recovery resource as well. Is there a favorite element to you in coming here?
Yeah, the lab is all about quickness and hand-eye coordination and stuff like that. I would say Sensorina is definitely one of my favorite tools. We use it here at the U as well. Coach Dak, he is a big believer in sensory and VR technology and kind of being able to get those reps in without having to go on the ice and putting on your gear. And sometimes it's a hassle. And it hurts the knees sometimes, hurts the hips. So I mean, I would say sensory, no problem.
I think if you wanted to, you could spend 15 hours a day here doing every single thing. So you have to pick your poison a little bit. I'm definitely a bit of a gym rat, so I spend a lot of time in the gym. Definitely once my skating picks up closer to season, I'm spending a lot of time on the ice.
I don't want to say pioneer, but they are like a huge part of goalie development, and especially in the Northeast. Every goalie around here knows what Stop It Goaltending is. This is a testament to him and his company, but he focuses so much on just the position and all the little things that we need to do better, and some of his drills sometimes are a little unorthodox, but he just continues to try and adapt and evolve with the position as players get better and shooters get better, and the equipment gets better too. Like sticks practically shoot for themselves nowadays. So
Every time I walk in here, my eyes light up, even though I wasn't a goalie.
Probably the easiest way to kind of think about what we do here is we look at a goaltender like a tennis player. So it's, I think we're playing a sport inside a sport. And the demands of being a goaltender are not the same as being a left wing, right?
Agreed.
So, and now picture a tennis match. We have Wimbledon going on right now, so picture a tennis match. So you've got a tennis player on the court, and then you look over in the stands and there's his box.
Yeah.
What does he have? He has a strength coach. He's got a mental performance coach.
Yeah.
He's got a body coach working a masseur or a masseuse with them. He's got the actual coach of technique, right?
Yeah.
From a development standpoint,
Yeah.
he has a team. And so what we've done is we've tried to create an environment where we can provide a goaltender a team.
I love it.
So that it's not just going on the ice and doing your drills and learning your technique on the ice. It's about, okay, going on the ice and getting taught, going to the Stop It Goaltending U app and looking at videos that support the drills that you're doing, watching NHL clips, watching breakdowns of the actual drill so you know what you're doing when you're on the ice. And then you have everything else we provide. So we have a cognitive training element. So we call it the G Lab. And we have over $100,000 worth of equipment to train processing speed, to allow a goaltender to be able to process information quicker.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a physical therapist right here. We have strength and conditioning. And we have Maria Mountain, the foremost in off-ice training for goaltenders. She designs the curriculum for our goalies to do. So they're training like goal. They're not training like stay-at-home defensemen. They're not training like a skilled centerman. They're training like a goalie. Mm-hmm. So not only do we do that, but we do it in an environment where the kids are together. So you're with other like-minded athletes. You're in your community. The goalie community is a special place. So you're interacting and you're feeding off of that. And I think about Joey and the relationships that he has now at 27 years old.
Yeah.
It's all guys he used to train with at Stop It.
Yeah.
Because they used to train together and hang out in the summer and go golfing and do all that kind of stuff. And it's really interesting to me because we have a curriculum and we're teaching the kids all the time, but we learn too.
Well, he's built this from the ground up. This is the 25th year, so it's been 25 years. He's been building this for a long time, and I think he's created an incredible place where everyone feels welcome and everyone knows that they can come and work with any of the coaches and interact with any of the shooters, coaches, staff, whatever it may be, and they're going to have a great experience and they're going to get better at goaltending. And his passion for goaltending, like you said, is like, it's next level. It's crazy to me that he has still at like his age now. He's going to be 60 next month. He's so like committed and so passionate about it, and he just wants to help anyone. We always tell him, like, you need to take more off your plate. You need to take more off your plate, and somehow he keeps always adding more because he can't not help someone out or do nice things for other people. And he's just an incredible person. So I'm definitely lucky to have him as my dad.
Well, I'm looking at this and I'm taking this for a second. This is not part of the plan, but I always say, like, how to be a goalie parent, and I've recommended this book from you to so many other hockey goalie parents, like moms and dads, and it's like, you got to read this thing because it's exactly what you've been saying here. And for me, it's like, it's a different language. It's just different than these players, and I love it. And like I said, I wish I was a goalie back then. Like I said, street hockey just never panned out to the never panned out to the ice, but it was great. I know your story, which I admire your story, and it was great last year at the Outdoor Classic there to see your son and you and live that moment. It was pretty cool, and I tell you one thing, that's what hockey's all about, and it was fun, and thanks for having us here the last few hours, and maybe even tomorrow a little bit. I wish everybody could see what this is, and it's not because you're here, but it's special, and I know you said it, it's 25 plus years in the making. This is not something that was done like, last week, let's put this thing together. I'm a goalie guy now, you know what I mean? Let's have a goalie lab, So, but thank you for having us, and this was great, and it's so insightful, and hopefully people can go get that book because it's very important.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So a couple of snippets from a bunch of the stuff that Eric ended up doing over at Stop It Goaltending out in Boston. We're going to have full interviews up on our YouTube later today with Brian DeCord, the guy who runs Stop It Goaltending, Max Lacroix, who trains there, and then Joey DeCord as well, the starter for the Seattle Kraken this last season. So if you want to get more insight on things directly from goaltending and goaltending trainers, you can go check out those videos over on our YouTube. We do have more goalieing to talk about, but before we do, we are brought to you by Coors Light. I don't think Coors Light is probably in the regiment over at Stop It Goaltending, but you know what? Sometimes you need to chillax and have a beer, so that's where Coors Light comes in. It's the beer literally made to chill. The mountains turn blue when it's cold and ready to drink. Of course, they use the crisp, refreshing taste of the Colorado Rockies as well, right here, brewed in Colorado. So make sure you're reaching for a Coors Light when you're relaxing, whether it be out on a picnic or at home watching a sporting event, or you're maybe down here at the DNVR bar cracking a beer, whatever it might be. Make sure you're picking up a Coors Light. It's what I reach for when I want to chill. You can choose Coors Light, and you don't even have to go get it. If you want at home, you can get it delivered right to your front door with CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Thanks to Instacart. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Once you've had your Coors, make sure you're also taking care of your job side of things. If you're a company looking to hire, right now, you need Indeed. Jump on it with Indeed. Indeed has tons of options that help you cut out all of the busy work when it comes to hiring. You can use their platform to schedule, message, and more when it comes to prospective candidates with your company. According to Indeed, they have over 350 million global monthly visitors with their own data, and 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So make sure you're jumping on with Indeed for all of your hiring needs, and listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and show your support by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Again, Indeed.com/AllCity to Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Eric, you look into all those interviews you did and all the footage you have there and all the different practice and training. You raised Max doing a lot of this stuff. How much more difficult is it to train as an NHL goaltender or as an up-and-coming goaltender, in the sense of, if you're a skater, get a stick, get a puck, get out on the ice, and you're kind of working on things. But if you're a goaltender, if you're just out there, yeah, you can work on your technique and stuff, but you kind of need somebody shooting on you, or maybe using those VR tools to really train, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're bang on. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, Max is at BU, the whole team's there, right? They all, just like DU, or the whole team's there. They work out, they skate together. But coaches are not allowed to be on the ice, as you know, with the NCAA rules and stuff like that. So they'll have someone run practice, which is, somebody outside the staff, whatever it is. But too many times, and it's the same thing for youth hockey teams, from U8 to U18, you tend to forget about the goalie. You know what I mean? Because it's like, shut your mouth, get in the net, and we're doing this. This is what we're doing, right? You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, wow, this sucks for a goalie, because it's like you get nothing out of it. Or this is so stupid for a goalie because it's just shot after shot after shot. After like 3-4 minutes, you're like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not realistic, you know what I mean? Which is so stupid, because now your technique goes to shits. And, so it's funny because, like, for example, like I'm using Max, so the guys are skating today at B, but no, here he is after the workout, gets in his car and drives to, in Marlboro, which is like 45 minutes out. And why is it? Because it's the Stop It Goaltending this week. There's 150 goalies on the ice at this 10 rinks, right? In Marlboro, it's awesome center, and 10 rinks attached together. And he's got 150 goalies there this week, from NHL goalies all the way to U10 goalies. You know what I mean? And the whole focus is kind of what you just saw there, kind of like what the goalie lab is about, his goalie lab, right? The G lab. But it's all in Marlboro, and it starts at 8 a.m. until about 3 p.m. And you're on the ice, obviously with your age groups and stuff like that. But there's the Maria Mountain he was talking about. Those are the movements that you'll learn, like on the turf, as you saw there. And you know what I mean? For it helps you move in the crease, and then the yoga part, and then the visual part, and then they have speakers. So yeah, instead of going to play 3-on-3 with the rest of the guys, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, which can get boring for a goalie. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get in my car and drive to Stop It for the week. Not I get in Marlboro, and that's the difference. You want to get some productive stuff. You got to have a goalie coach, and that's why every NHL team nowadays has a goalie coach. You got to remember, when I was playing, a lot of teams didn't have a full-time goalie coach. When I was working with the Avs, we had Kirk that was coming in once a month or whatever it was, and it's hard for goalies because they're a different breed. They're on their own. They're on an island. There's 2 per team, so you got to leave them alone, but you also got to surround them. And that's why the goalie lab is so awesome, because when you walk in there, it's all about them. It's all about goalies. It's not about the forwards. It's not about the Ds. It's about goaltending and everything specific to goaltending. So I do believe that the NHL does do that nowadays, with obviously the goaltending departments that every team's doing right now. They're giving more love to the goalies. They're giving more love to the position. They're letting them learn. They're letting them be more comfortable with it. And a lot of coaches will tell you, like, I don't want to talk to goalies. I don't want to deal with goalies. And that's why I have a goalie coach. And it's awesome. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you admit that you don't understand the position. And again, I'm not going to say I understand. I'm saying I meant it, that book there that's like How to Be a Goalie Parent. It's the greatest thing I've ever written in my life. And, it helps you because it helps you understand the position. You know what I mean? And a lot of people in youth hockey should read that book, as parents or even as coaches or as teammates, to understand what those guys go through. So it's fun. It's a different position. And like you said, like you saw, like you're seeing, there's a big, big progression on what goaltending was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, to what it is today. It's absolutely crazy, the difference. And, if I would have said reverse VH 5 years ago, you'd be like, what? Reverse what? What is that? Right? And now it's like, screw the reverse VH, and everybody's an expert on it. Like, oh, it sucks. And, so it's nice. That means that the position is, like, it's it's brought a little bit of attention where there was none, not a lot before.
Vertical horizontal. That's what the VH stands for, by the way,
Yeah.
if you don't know. As in one pad vertical, one pad horizontal. Or the reverse would swap them, yeah.
Yeah, and then you see one goal now being scored, and then it's like, oh my God, the reverse VH. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it because I don't want to deal with that today, but I can show you a shit ton of goals back then when I was playing where goalies were hugging the post and the puck was going in. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, hey, I scored a few that way. You know what I mean? So it's like, you got to be careful with what you wish for, right? So
Hey, I don't care how you seal the post as long as you seal the post, right? As long as that puck doesn't go in.
I agree, because it always looks like shit.
We've talked before, not goalie related, but about like the advancement of technology of gear, particularly sticks, and how ridiculous sticks are these days. I think in Max's interview, he talks about how they pretty much shoot themselves at this point. Has there been similar evolution in goaltending equipment?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, just because of being a goalie, a goalie dad, meaning the last 15 years.
Yeah, I'm sure
whatever it
you've
is.
bought a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like every year it just gets better and better and better. Even if it's like from sticks for goalies as well. I mean, it's changed a lot. Or even like a skate blade. You know what I mean? Like the evolution of the last couple years, and now they make them even. I mean, again for forwards as well, but they make the blades even wider. Some goalies like that better. It gives them more like bite or whatever it is. I mean, it's endless. Again, they're on their own conversations, these people. But when I mean that with all the respect in the world, when I say these people, meaning the goalies, their own world. But the equipment has been absolutely stunning. Like the change is crazy. It is so light. Hey, listen, growing up, as you know, my dad was Patty Waugh's agent, and like for example, the '86 gloves that and the pads, and those were my street hockey gloves and pads. You know what I mean? Like he used to bring all this his gear that he would change halfway through. But it's unreal how heavy those pads used to get, and then it was like a leather couch. You know what I mean? Like, and it was like, and then you throw a hose on, it's all wet. Next thing you know, it's like weighs like 25 pounds a leg. Nowadays, nothing gets wet. It stays the same, right? It's all super light. It's almost too light. And then the way their skates are tied to the boots tied to the leg, like, when you go down on the butterfly, it just goes with it. It's almost like, are you sure it's tied onto the freaking skate or whatever? And it's like, the chest protectors, like everything is so much more light and so much more protection. I mean, you would think like, hey, more protection, less,
more weight,
more heavy, more weight, but it's the opposite. The masks are amazing. I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, wow, careful. It's like, buddy, you don't even feel anything. I mean? Like, it's not like Jacques Plante, you know what I mean? Like when he was putting that mask on and the gloves and everything, it's like you put a glove on now and it's like, you can go play a game with it. You don't even have to break it in. Like it comes broken in. So the evolution of the equipment is as much as we say it's an advantage to the shooters and stuff, which it is, but the evolution of the goaltending equipment's been right there too, parallel with it. So, I mean, you have to, and I know they've put limitations, because of just gear back then, that, guard snow and the shoulder.
Wearing a quadruple XL chest protector.
Yeah. Well, goalies always figured out a way to add a couple things to their jerseys and their, their pants or, whatever it was. But now you can't because it's regulated and, people from the league walk around and, go look and test equipment, make sure that everything is fine. But yeah, I mean, it's been amazing to see. But also I'll say it and I'll say it again. They're such better athletes than back then. I mean, back then, I think the stigma was more like, oh, this guy can't play, can't skate, let's put him in the net. You know what I mean? And that's how you become a goalie. Where nowadays, I think it all changed. Mike Richter I played with, he was in freaking incredible shape. So there's always been guys that were not normal compared to other goalies. And again, I'm not going to knock on Patty, but Patty would, it's not like he was Mr. Fitness, when he showed up in the camp. But again, he played so much, and next thing you know, he would be in shape because you got to be in shape to play. I mean, even back then, to play 60-minute game in the National Hockey League, like it's a lot. But nowadays, they're unbelievable athletes, and Jonathan Quick, guys like that. They're guys that when the testing comes in training camp, they're always at the top of the list, and they're always at the top of the names of the most fit people on their team.
I want to get into that side of it a little bit more here. So let me ask you this, because I know you're more of a fan. You tend towards the slightly smaller, more athletic goaltenders, just generally speaking. But we've seen over the past decade, 15 years in the skater position, the NHL become more and more willing to go with these smaller players, maybe a little bit more agile, not so in love with the size, but it feels like the goaltender position is the opposite. Over the past 10 years, we've seen more and more and more draft big goalies, get the biggest goalie you can, even to the point where you're sacrificing a significant amount of athleticism sometimes. Is that just a byproduct of a position where a bigger guy means there's less to shoot at, or do you think that pendulum could start to swing back towards more athletic guys in the future?
Yeah, I think it can swing. If you go back, and again, I'm not biased. It has nothing to do with my son. Don't put that out of the equation because he's a 6'1" guy, not a 6'6" guy. I love Eustace, for example, because I love his size, but I do believe Eustace moves well and he's a good athlete. There's not many guys like that. There's Vasilevsky, that can move and that is an athlete. There's a lot of big goalies in the league. They're not athletes, and I understand you're playing the percentages and all that stuff, which is fine. I just feel that those guys are more leaky than my guy's always been, and I've loved him for a few years. I talked about him earlier with Saros. You know what I mean? You're talking he's barely 6 feet. If you like him, he's 6 feet, but in reality, he's probably 5'11" and a half. You know what I mean? But I just feel that guys like that are so good technically, and they are so good in their movement. They're so good on their feet. And they end up, again, when you're dealing with percentages, they end up having a higher percentages of saves than a big guy that can't move. You know what I mean? So I like that athlete. If you go back to 2 years ago, Saros was at the top of the league. You had Dustin Wolf that was at the top of the American League. Again, if you like Dustin, he's 6 feet. If you don't like him, he's 5'11" and a half. You know what I mean? And then you had Devin Levi dominating college, and I'm not throwing the towel on Devin Levi. Like he's
tough transition for him, though. Tough
No,
transition.
it is like a lot of goalies. But like a lot of goalies, I jumped the gun last year. I was like, hey, this guy's gonna be amazing. Remember, I was like, oh, he'll win the Rookie of the Year. You know what I mean? Whatever. We all know that the NHL is a tough league. He's still a young goaltender. The French came out there, but I do believe I like the guys that can move. I like guys that are sharp, that are quick in the net. And I don't think it has anything to do with size. Like I said, I like Eustace. I like the way he moves. You know what I mean? And what's Eustace, 6'5"? You know what I mean? He's got to be at least
6'3" or 4", I think. Yeah,
he's a big guy. And Georgiev is 6'1", whatever he is. He's not, and he's got quick feet. He moves well in the net. I like that. So I think the position is more like, man, like it is. It's almost, we were talking again. We'll see those interviews, right, with Brian. Brian is a long interview. We'll put it on YouTube, like you said, and on a standalone. But talks a lot about the position as well. Like sometimes it's so methodical that goalies are, you know what I mean? They just stick to their technique, and sometimes you have to throw it out the window. And I think a guy like Fleury is a guy that learned that a lot. You know what I mean? Over the years, it's now you see him being stupid. And when I say stupid, in a
too
nice
far
way,
the other way, maybe. Yeah,
he's diving everywhere, and he's like, "All right, everything goes," because that's at some point, everything goes out the window. Matt Davis save, whatever it is in the final game there. It's not technique. It's just it's desperation. It's everything goes out the window, and you got to be desperate. And that's what I think goaltending, they have to figure out when to let that go. And then they have to figure out when to go back to what makes them successful, which is their technique or their size or whatever it is. And I remember listening to Francois Allaire in the playoffs because they were talking about Bobrovsky, and they're like, hey, what have you seen, Bobrovsky's changed since he got his net back in the playoffs last year, not even this year. And Francois' answer was really good. It was more about Bobrovsky's so good with his feet. He goes, we told him, play to your strengths. Play to your strengths and stop trying to get out of the blue paint and be so wild outside the blue paint. You know what I mean? Be wild inside the blue paint because that's where you're having success. And I guess Bobrovsky all of a sudden went back to like, oh my God, that's right. This is where I excel. This is where I'm in my comfort zone. And then don't try to be something you're not or whatever it is outside the blue paint and be acrobatic or whatever it is that you're trying. Get back in there, be crazy in your own cage, so to speak, and then play to your limits. So I think goaltending is fascinating. What they have at their disposition now is absolutely crazy. I mean, from video to, again, analytics, it's so different than players' analytics, right? That we get right there when the game ends. They have their own analytics from their puck touches to their rebound control to, the type of goals or chances that they saved. And obviously we all know the expected goals and all that kind of stuff, but it's amazing what they can have access to. And again, sometimes it can become a little bit too much as well. So I think it's like everything else. You got to make sure that you're a little bit of, under control and consistent with what you're eating with all the information you're given.
Yeah, let me tie this back into the Avs a little bit because we talked a lot last year with Georgiev about the one thing he struggled with was shots at distance. More specifically, low percentage scoring chances were going in on Georgiev a lot more often than some of the other goaltenders in the league, where for the most part, high danger chances, Georgiev was as good or in some cases better than average when it comes to the NHL. Is that part of the reason why we've seen this swing towards bigger goaltenders then? Because let's face it, shots from distance against a bigger goaltender, more likely to just hit the guy, right? And I don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take away anything from bigger goaltenders. The least athletic big goaltender in the NHL is more athletic than I've ever been in my entire life. But there's a difference between the guy where the puck is just hitting him and the guy who's making athletic saves on the regular.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about odds are a bigger guy might see some shots from the outside more in a sense that because you're seeing over something or you're covering more stuff because your shoulders are squared to the play. But you're right. And take George, for example, Georgie. I mean, in tight, like you said, he's good, because he's quick and his numbers are probably kicks the shit out of a guy that's 6'6", what I mean, that doesn't move like him. But yes, on the shots from the outside, then he concedes that to the other guy. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of give and take. You can't get everything in a sense that maybe the closest you get to everything for me is probably Vasilevsky because he is so quick. You know what I mean? And he is so tall and so he covers every angle in a sense of what a tall goaltender can do, what an athletic goaltender can do, and what a shorter guy can do, And again, it's physics, it's math, right? So the tighter you are, the less holy you are. But the taller you are, the more holy you are, you know what I mean? So it's just life, you know what I mean? That's just the way it is. Then your 5 hole's a lot bigger, you know what I mean? Like a 6'8" goalie, buddy. It's 5 hole. You look at it, you're like, holy shnikes. You know what I mean? That's where I'm shooting. You know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, it's there. You know what I mean? It's normal because his legs are so, you know what I mean? His legs are so much taller. So that's why I say I'm not that guy. Well, yeah, you're bang on. Some teams will be like, yeah, I'm not 6'4", I'm not drafting. You know what I mean? And it's still like that. It's still like that for some teams. And then I think now they're digging in a little more on the position and they have more tools to dig in to see, can this guy actually play even though he is 6'1" or, he's not 6'6". Sure. And I think that's what you're seeing a little bit more nowadays.
So let me ask you this, because I don't have a good answer for you. What country is the next goalie powerhouse country? It's certainly not Canada currently. The U.S. has some. Sweden's kind of past their goalie generation at this point. I don't know. I don't really know. Does Finland have a lot? It feels like a lot of that Finnish generation never quite fully made it to that elite status.
It's funny you're asking that because I think I was telling you the other day, growing up, obviously in Montreal, Patty Waugh was the man, right? I mean, it's, again, he got in the league. He was 20. He won the Cup. He won the Calder Cup the year before just by joining the team out of the queue. he became a phenomenon, and everybody wanted to be a goalie. So over the years, the guys that were behind him in age, I'm talking about, so Marty, so to speak, right, Brodeur, Roberto Luongo. I mean, we had Mark Denny, we had Eric J.S. Giguère. There was so many French goalies. When I say French goalies, Quebecers, because everybody in the province, everybody wanted to be a goalie. You know what I mean? It was crazy. And then it went down to the a little bit like you said, the 6'6" freaking Finnish goalies, and guys that were, and I'll tell you what, you see a lot of the last few years, and especially in the NCAA, you see a lot of Euros come over and play college hockey, and a lot of them are goalies. There was a pipeline too, and with DU there too, the Swedes, and for a couple of years they had some Swedes, right? Corona and that guy before, I don't remember his name.
Lundqvist inspired a lot of Swedes for sure.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's just the way it's been. It's been like that for college hockey. You see a lot of Russians goaltender, come to the Quebec League in juniors. Nabokov not being the case, obviously. I'm not too sure where he played juniors, but actually I was with Steve Casper yesterday. I should have asked him more about, he was coaching in the Russian Junior League last year, former coach in the NHL, former player in the NHL, but I should have asked him more about Nabokov. Didn't think about that until we're talking out loud right now. But anyway, you see a lot of Europeans in that position that come over, because it is a different game. It is a different game in Europe than it is here, and that's why guys like Eustace, I've been in the American League for a few years now. They've adapted to the North American style of game, North American style of ice surface, as you know, in Europe. And I think that they're going back to all regular like NHL surface. I want to say in the next couple of years in Europe as well, right? International hockey. I think the big ice is going to be gone.
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I read something about that. Yeah, which was a big difference for goalies. To come over and to get Americanized, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I don't know what the future is, but it's certainly not Canada right now, because I tell you, we're a little average in the net now with the World Cup coming up and the Olympics. I do believe the U.S. has had a bit of an advantage, and obviously Russians have had look at Bobrovsky and guys like that. I mean, it's holy crap.
I think you make a pretty good argument for Russia as being kind of the goalie nation right now. The older guys, Bobrovsky, Varley, Vasilevsky, sort of Georgiev too, technically from Bulgaria, but but then you have guys in their prime and Shesterkin and Sorokin. And then you have some of those next level guys with, you mentioned him earlier in the show, and an Askarov. Ivan Fedotov just came over for Philadelphia. So maybe it's the Russians. I don't know.
Maybe it is the Russians. Like I said, it kind of jumped at me the other day for Canada, though. I was like, holy crap. They were like projecting lineups. And I was like, wow, that's. Yeah. We were dominant all those years. You know what I mean? Canada with Carey Price and all those guys and Louis and now it's kind of like, and no offense to those guys, I'm saying it's just not the same caliber as you've been accustomed to see over the years. So yeah, I think the U.S. is way ahead right now of Canada in the goaltending department. Yeah, I mean they've got Hellebuck doing a lot of the heavy lifting there for the U.S. Ottinger too, to be fair, but yeah. I guess Swayman. Yeah, you're right. There's a list. Name keeps popping up for U.S. Yeah, so fair enough. Meanwhile, Canada's like Jordan Binnington's going to be their starter or something. Yeah. And again, no offense to Binnington. I'm saying, and I know Habs fans like Binnington. That's not what I'm saying. But he's still a decent goalie. But I don't think it's in the category of, Bobrovsky and
not some of these all-time level guys. Yeah, for sure.
It's
not the same, but. All right. We do have to wrap up today's show, so a little bit of goaltending conversation. Don't want to neglect our goalies, of course. So hope y'all enjoyed that show. And, of course, when we do post all of the interviews, go check out, especially the one with Brian Decord. It is super awesome to learn all about how the goaltenders train and experience a hockey life, I guess. That's how I would put it.
It's a nerdy interview for sure.
Yeah, big hockey goalie nerd interview.
Yeah, big nerdy interview
so
for sure.
Make sure you go check those out. Tomorrow's show, we're talking some of the most important trades in Avalanche history. So that should be a fun one, too. If you're into trades, make sure you're tuning in tomorrow. Like and subscribe here on YouTube or find us on Spotify if you're more of the audio listener type. We will talk to you guys tomorrow, I guess. We'll see you.
We all silly like the mayor.